Worldly people are aiming for a relieved outcome. That's why they are worldly people. And worldly people eventually they get stuck in a hypnotic routine in society, and that's what they're holding on to. So worldly people, they never, I'm not saying never in the absolute sense, but in general, they never look beyond their own expectations because their goal is to be relief centered and to be in a to be stuck in a collective routine together with others in order to be relieved, to have that security. That's what worldly people are after. And that hypnotic routine, it works. That's why they don't experience that much difficulties. Now there are worldly people that experience much more difficulties, but that is because they are the scapegoats that the community used to relieve, to throw the negative energies upon. So that happens. And there are people who have an extreme negative mindset and that's generating a lot of negative energy that's causing a lot of trouble around them. But in general, worldly people who get along with the flow, who conform to the world, conform to society, they don't experience much trauma. They don't experience much stuff. But that's them. You as a believer, you cannot think the same way as they do. You cannot think nor expect the same as those that don't follow Christ. You cannot expect that relieved routine that they're holding on to. Because that relieved routine is not a safe routine, it's not safe. But because there's an absence of violence, and even if there's violence, it's resolved quickly, people think they are safe. They're not. When you operate in true safety, it's then that you will see the dangers for what they really are. So worldly people, they don't look beyond. Very few worldly people do that. And it is because worldly people don't look beyond that they are so easily deceived. And there are many worldly people that die before their time, that get into a lot of trouble because they don't look beyond. You as a believer, it ought to be your default setting to look beyond. Not because you're fearful, you shouldn't be. Not because you're suspicious, no. Not because you're expecting demons behind every bush, no. Because you overcome demons when you walk by faith. You look beyond because that is what you ought to do as a believer. People that don't look beyond, they're stuck with their own expectations that they often don't examine. So they're operating in darkness. And it works, but because it works, they are deceived in thinking they are all right. They're not. So you learn to look beyond. Learn to see things from the wider perspective. Learn to look at the bigger picture. Learn to look at things in their entirety instead of what corresponds to your expectations. Look, I'm giving an illustration now. If you have a criminal, okay, that is on a death list of other criminals, maybe he stole money, or maybe he slept with the wife of a gangster, or you make up a reason why other criminals are after him. That guy is a criminal himself, so the police are looking for him. If he ends up in jail, there are people in jail waiting for him. And on the streets, there are also criminals after him. So it happens, such a guy, he is alert. Or she, because of the female criminals, but I keep it to a male example now, he is alert. When he goes to the supermarket, he does go to the supermarket, he's not agitated or stressed out, but he's alert. If he sees someone looking at him for way too long, he pays attention, he asks what's going on. Why? Because he knows there are people after him. He realizes that if he remains in fear, people get to him easily because he understands that when you're afraid, you can't think straight. So he doesn't want to be afraid, but he realizes, I need to be alert because there are people out there that want to get me. So I can't make it easy for them to get me. So I'm not going to become paranoid, because when you're paranoid, you make wrong decisions and people notice it. But if you remain with repressed knowledge by by throwing things away, saying that's the past, it's not today, by not having a realistic outlook, you can be trapped also. Because the criminal realized that those people that are after him, they don't forget about him. They don't leave the past behind. They don't think it happened 10, 20 years ago, or no. They have their claims and their will they don't want to let go of, so they keep going after the guy. So the criminal adapts. He's not becoming fearful, but he's alert. Now, if you have a criminal who has people from the criminal world behind him, and he keeps going to the same club every weekend where he used to go since he was in his teens, anyone that looks at it will say that guy is crazy. You have people that want to shoot at you. You have people that want to beat you up, and you keep going to the same club. Don't you think that if you go to the same club, they may think, oh, you know what? We're going to wait for Giovanni at the club tonight because he always comes here. Or let's say you have a criminal that puts selfies on his Instagram all the time. He also makes selfies with a lot of money that he earns by his criminal activity. Don't you think people come to think, what's wrong with this guy? Doesn't he know that the police is also on social media? Doesn't he realize if he makes selfies of himself on multiple places, people can track his phone records and see where he was? And not only the police are also hackers that work for criminals can do that. If you have a criminal like that, people will say, man, that guy is looking for his own death. That guy is looking for trouble. But okay, forget about the criminal, okay? I use it as a parable. As a believer, you ought to be far wiser than streetwise criminals. I use the example of a streetwise criminal to motivate you. I did not use it to shame you. No, I'm not into that. I've used the example of a streetwise criminal to motivate you to look at the bigger picture. You are a believer. You walk by faith. You operate in supernatural. You are not like all the others. You do go to the job, if you have one. You do have to wear clothes. You do need water and food, the common things like all humans do, but you're not like people in the world. And you may forget about that because you don't notice any supernaturality coming through you. But others do notice the power of the Holy Spirit. They do notice you walking by faith. And they don't forget that you're not like them. And people that become upset because of the power that you have, they are going to will against you. And let me tell you, worldly people that expect your doom because you are a believer and they realize that your doom ain't coming and that all their investments against you is a waste of time, they'll escalate. Seldom will they stop. They'll keep coming after you. And not only worldly people, also those evil spirits that are behind them. Because this evil spirit that initiated the fight in the first place. And those evil spirits and those people, you have them everywhere. In church, at a job, you have them in the government. So understand, believer, that those that seek your doom are many, but realize that he who is inside of you is far bigger than them out there. That means you ought to be in agreement with him who is inside of you, who is bigger than them. That means you cannot operate like the common people of the world. Because the common people of the world are not the target. The common people of the world are just in their routine, and that's how they remain till they die, and they go to the lake of fire because they're not saved. The enemy is not going after them because they're lost already. Look, if you are a hunter and shot down some rabbits, 2 rabbits they escaped, so you can't do anything with them anymore. But there's 1 rabbit who's wounded and tries to get away, and there are 2 who are dying because they lost so much blood. What are you going to do? You're going to capture the rabbits that are almost dying. And then one of your servants tells you, sir, we have a good catch. But then you say, go off that rabbit. And your servant tells you, but sir, we already have 2 rabbits. Then you tell him, I did not waste my ammunition to get only 2 rabbits. You have 2 that escaped, you can't help that anymore, but that one is wounded, go after it, kill it. That's how the enemy is. Those in the world are already trapped. It doesn't have to do much effort to keep them trapped. But when you are born again and you walk by faith, you are a threat to the enemy's plans. you're a threat to his rule. You're a threat to the darkness. And when you are a threat to the darkness, you cannot have the same mentality as those that are in darkness. You get what I'm saying here? Just like a streetwise criminal, you should be far more streetwise. Because you have streetwise criminals that are much more practical than some believers. And it shouldn't be that way. You should be wise as serpents. I'm not telling you to become a serpent, figuratively speaking, but you should be wise as a serpent. You should outsmart the narcissist. You should be able to outsmart the psychopath. You should be able to outsmart the angry mob that's coming against you. How? Agree with Christ. That being said, be at peace and keep on going in faith, no matter what.